everyone. Welcome to another show of Books and More 1818. And guess what? I have two authors with me today, and they wrote this marvelous book called A Blessing, Not a Burden. I'd like to welcome to the show Alex, Kor, and Graham Honaker. Did I say your name right? If I didn't, I'm sorry. Graham?
You nailed it. That's the exact pronunciation. Thank you.
Great. Thank you and welcome. It's an honor to have you both on Books and More 1818. Can you tell us a little bit about A Blessing, Not a Burden? What is it about?
So maybe I'll start and let Graham jump in. So a little over 2 years ago, Graham and I frequently have dinner on Saturday night. And a year or so previous to that, my father passed away. And so the Graham said, "Why you're gonna ever write this book?" And so that night he sent me a bunch of questions. And to answer your question more directly, the book chronicles my father's life, who survived one ghetto and three concentration camps over 4 years. Chronicles how he got to Terre Haute, Indiana, where he lived the remainder of his life. And then it also tells my mom's story. My mom was one of the Mengele twins. And then it tells my story about being the child of two Holocaust survivors growing up, of all places, in Terre Haute, Indiana, which does not have a big Jewish population. And then beyond that, there's a journey that my mom went on to ultimately heal herself by forgiving herself, her parents, a Nazi doctor named Dr. Munch, Dr. Mengele, all in her name only. And so the idea of forgiveness is definitely a theme. And then at the end of the book, we have life lessons that we think are very appropriate for what's going on in the world today.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. And what would you like to say, Graham?
I would add, I think Alex is probably too humble to admit this. I'm a student of history. I've lived all over. His family story is the most amazing tale that I've ever encountered, I've ever read. I was blessed to know his parents, but the incredible journey, both of his parents, who both were Holocaust survivors, but had different journeys, were in different camps, had different feelings about the Holocaust after the war ended. And then, the unique element, as many survivors ended up in bigger cities, Los Angeles, New York, Chicago. Alex's family ended up in a very small town in Indiana, which, as you can imagine, wasn't the easiest for, you know, people of Jewish descent in the 1950s and 60s, and what they went on to do with their lives, and what Alex has gone on to do with his life and carrying the torch for his parents. It's really a remarkable tale.
It really is. I read the book, and as I was reading the book, I said, I wish I knew his parents. They were remarkable. My God, especially your mom, Alex. My goodness, what I've read and what I've seen, just from looking it up online and after reading the book, my God, ladies and gentlemen, you have to read this book, A Blessing, Not a Burden. There is so much in there, so much into this horrific the horrific things that went on in the Holocaust, and just reading about both of them and the different stories. And I don't want to give it away, but we all know about the Holocaust. But I highly recommend this book. It's like nothing I've ever read before. And I've read quite a few Holocaust books. My parents, not my father, but my mother and her whole family escaped the Holocaust. And that's a different tale, but I've never read anything like this. But
I
Well,
think we
thank
here's our second marketing agent. We've got a good one, but I think we need to add you as well. Thank you for the accolades.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do. Thank you. All right. This is for both of you. I have a question for the both of you again. Can you explain the significance of the book's title, A Blessing, Not a Burden?
So I'll start out with that one. There's a lot of reasons for the title. There is a preconceived idea that children of the Holocaust or even third generation suffer from post-traumatic stress and suffer from, the skeletons in their parents' closets. I firmly believe, because my mom more than my dad, but my mom and my dad told me very age appropriate stories when I was very young, told my sister and I. And I do think that knowing these stories when I was very, very young, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, really helped me later in life. And one example I'll tell you is when I was 26 years old. I'm a podiatrist. I was in podiatry school in Chicago, and I was diagnosed with cancer, and it spread to my lung. And my mom kept on leaving voicemails, and I kept on hitting delete. I was feeling sorry for myself. And finally, one message got through, and she said, "Look, I know you're there. You're feeling sorry for yourself. Your dad's a survivor. I'm a survivor. You're going to be a survivor. This is your Auschwitz." And, when you're 26 years old, you don't know, you know, what the future holds. When you hear this type of reassurance, it's hard to ignore. So I do think for me, what's perceived as a negative has always been a positive for me, and I don't speak for anybody else. But that's really the real reason that we chose that title, and I think it's appropriate. And the word blessing obviously has a lot of connotations, but I do think that for me, it's not something I think of as a big problem in my life. I think of it as a positive thing. So I think you try to always turn a negative into a positive, and the old adage about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger really applies here.
Amazing.
I would add, and by the way, Alex is looking at writing a book about his experience with me, titled "A Burden, Not a Blessing."
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
On a serious note, going back to his story, I, none of us, I certainly can't fathom what it was like being a survivor of the Holocaust and what they went through. His mother being a Mengele twin, his father was in multiple camps, very nearly killed at the end of the war. Unfortunately, we've seen it with many survivors of trauma. It really cripples them throughout their life, for the rest of their life. If you're looking for inspiration, what Alex's parents did with their lives, in their own different ways, his mother creating the Candles organization, going on to forgive, going all over the world to preach forgiveness, but his father, in his own way, was almost like a legend in Terre Haute, Indiana, for being such a positive force as a pharmacist. Ultimately, also lectured on the Holocaust. Would have been very easy for them to, clam up in their shell and keep to themselves, and they didn't. They used their story of tragedy to make a life of triumph. And Alex has done that as well. And one of the compliments we get on the book is when I ask, "What's your favorite chapter?" Ironically, as great as his parents' stories are, it's the chapter on Alex overcoming cancer and how his parents coached him through that. So again, I think life isn't about what happens to you; it's about how we react. No family ever reacted more to more horrible circumstances than the Kor family.
My gosh. Yeah, that chapter really took me also. My God, very emotional. The book is very emotional, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, my mom, like, she escaped the Holocaust. She climbed the Pyrenees Mountains from Antwerp, Belgium. But when she stayed in two foster homes in America, when she made it here as a young teen, she couldn't talk about the Holocaust at all, but it really affected her. She couldn't. It was impossible. I wish I would have known more about it from her, known more of it about it, but she couldn't discuss it. She just, so it's good that your parents were able to do what they did, and it's amazing. It's really
And
amazing.
yeah, let me tell you one little anecdotal story. I was 7 years old, my sister was 5, and my sister was playing next door, not a Jewish family next door, not a Holocaust survivor. And when my mom did the dishes, we were always used to seeing my mom on her left arm, her Auschwitz number. And so my sister's playing next door. Mrs. Baker makes some dinner, and my sister very innocently says, "Mrs. Baker, where's your number? I thought all mommies had numbers."
Oh,
Mrs. Baker, very smart, so well, you need to go ask your mom that. Okay, so she runs next door. Mommy, we just had dinner at Mrs. Baker's, and I don't understand. I thought all mommies had number. Mrs. Baker doesn't have a number like you. Why is that? I think most mothers to a 5-year-old would say, "Well, I'll tell you when you're older." Well, my mom didn't do that. She said, "Rena, as your father and I told you and your brother that bad people did bad things to us." And one of those bad things was they put a number on my arm. Oh, Mrs. Baker, she didn't have those bad things. Right. So she understood at age of 5, very basic. And then, we were periodically exposed to new stories or new questions, and we would ask our parents, and gradually we filled in the gaps. And that's kind of how we were taught. And, there weren't any secrets. My dad at times would try to hide his pain, with jokes and say, well, but as we got older, his camouflage would come down. And there's another quick little story. When he was on the boat at Stutthof, the other Holocaust survivors, they were down in the gallow of the boat. And to get water, they would be spraying a hose, and they have to sit with their mouth open to get a sip of water. I'm probably 15 years old. This is in Terre Haute. A big night out for my dad was to go to the Red Lobster. And we went into the restaurant past the aquarium, and all the fish are going like this. My dad sits down, breaks down. I go, what? What happened? What happened? He goes, the aquarium. So I didn't know the story at the time, but here and there would be little events that would trigger something in particularly my dad's past, but to some extent my mom. And these things would come out. And I think that for me that was a very eye-opening experience.
yeah, understood. All right. During your research into Graham, this is for you. During your research into Alex's parents, was there a particular fact or circumstance about Eva or Mickey that surprised or intrigued you the most?
Yeah, I think this is an easy one, and I'll probably steal it from Alex. And the amazing thing is, Alex did not know this. So the day of Mickey Kor's liberation was April 15th, 1945. So maybe I won't give away your age, but maybe I might. By my math, 18 years later, on April 15th, Dr. Alex Kor was born. And that's something he did not know. So that was something that we found in the research, which is, if you think about that, is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. My goodness. Wow. Wow. For both of you. For both of you. But you'll go first, Alex, because you had your turn, Graham. um, did the tragic events of October 7th and the rise in anti-Semitism worldwide impact your writing process or the content of the book?
Absolutely, yes. We started writing the book in August of 2023, kind of between, both of us have full-time jobs. And then obviously October 7th happened. And for me, being the child of 2 Holocaust survivors, seeing the images that unfortunately we still see, but seeing the images of what Hamas did, it really made it more urgent than ever that we complete the book. Initially, Sylvia, we had a publisher from Great Britain that did a lot of World War II books, and they said, "Yeah, once you turn it in, it'll be 2 years until the book comes out." And Graham and I thought, "No, we've got too much, into this." And not that we were trying in any way to take advantage of a terrible, terrible tragedy. But I do think it's so important for now second and third and fourth generation survivors, children, grandchildren, etc., to know these stories. And hopefully one of the themes of the book is a call to action so that some of these, descendants of the Holocaust go out of their way to at least be in some way involved. And some are, a lot of them are. But I do think for me and Graham, yes, it became much more important. We finished writing in late January of 2024. The book came out in May of 24, which is a pretty quick turnaround. We've had a couple revisions. Pediment Publishing deserves a lot of credit. And we're real happy with how this has turned out. But yes, it definitely affected how the sense of urgency that we felt.
Thank you for writing it. That's what I want to tell
Yeah.
you both. Thank you both for writing it.
Thanks.
What say you, Graham?
Yeah, I mean, I yeah, in terms of the October 7th, is that what you'd like me to?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to make light of this, but getting Alex to return my emails and questions, I definitely saw a more prompt response to them. We it was always a serious project, but we truly had an urgency here to get. We wanted to get it right. We wanted to do it well. There was an enormous amount of research and information, but not just October 7th. I think, I've talked about this a lot, and I'm not Jewish, but the continued global rise in anti-Semitism, the continued attacks in this country. We've continued to say for a year and a half since the book came out, it's unfortunately time. The you know the it's now in its fourth printing, this book, and the demand for lectures has not stopped. And that, in a way, we wish we weren't as in demand as we are, but the world needs this message. The attacks continue. No doubt, though, October 7th really moved up the timeline of this project.
Right.
Very important work you're doing, and I thank you both for what you're doing. Thank you very much. Really, I applaud you guys. It's
Thanks,
very
Sylvia.
important. Very important. Make sure you go to the schools.
We are.
Colleges need to hear this. Yes, if they're
Yep.
like, yeah, I mean,
Yep.
it's important. All right. Alex, in your opinion, what is the most common misconception people have about your parents?
Well, the most common misconception obviously revolves around my mom's forgiveness. There are several reasons I say that. First of all, a lot of people think that it kind of became very easy for my mom to do this, or even some have suggested it was a publicity stunt. My mom was not very forgiving. In fact, some people say she's the most forgiving person that they've ever met. But she went through a multiple number of negative things. Um, Being arrested in the Capitol Rotunda during Yom HaShoah for holding up a sign, 1993, her twin dying, and one bad thing led to another. And she was just kind of didn't know where to turn, didn't know what her role should be. And, I think, and a lot of people suggest that the arrest in the Capitol Rotunda was really the bottom of the barrel, even though my aunt died several years later, a few years later. But my mom tried to pick herself off the mat. And really, the way she picked herself off the mat and healed herself, and I think it's a great example for people, is that she had to go through hell, or as my mom used to say, HELL. She would never say the word directly, to get to the point that she would accept the idea of forgiveness. She didn't really know what she was doing until, because she was giving a gift to a Nazi doctor because he was documenting history. She thought this is a nice gift for him. But after the fact, that was January 27, 1995, after the fact, over the next several months, she realized she had given herself a gift, that she no longer had this chip on her shoulder. So I think the most common misconception is my mom's path to forgiveness was not so straightforward. She stumbled upon it. It was not, some formula. It was just one thing led to another. And next thing she knows, she thought, well, my goodness, I don't have this hate for German people anymore. I want to help people. And I do think that that's still very, very much misconstrued. Since my mom died, there have been a couple op-eds written that completely were using false narratives to document my mom's forgiveness. And that's another reason we wrote the book, is just that I don't want her legacy in any way tarnished. And Graham and I, particularly Graham, really made that a big emphasis.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Graham, would you like to elaborate?
Oh, it's hard to top that. Um, I no, I can't really. I echo what what Alex shares here. It's just interesting to me because I was writing as if I were a member of the family, even though I'm not, and you know, keeping that keeping that balance. But I do again. I guess the one thing I would say again, something that I don't think people realize is how gutsy it was of Eva Kor to do what she did. I think maybe for the casual observer, oh my gosh, she forgave the Nazis. That's amazing. She's courageous. She's awesome. All of this. She, for decades, took tremendous criticism, tremendous heat, was accused of being an attention monger. It, it wasn't all glory she received from this, what I think a lot of us who aren't as well versed in the Holocaust or Jewish tradition on forgiveness would imagine. But she got that criticism and she kept going out and letting it wash over her because she believed in her message.
And Sylvia, if I can jump in, she paid a huge price for doing this, a major, major price. And one other little anecdotal story, a misconception, was later my mom, there was a Nazi accountant, Oscar Gurning, on trial, and my mom was asked to testify. All the other survivors testified that he should be killed or put in prison. And my mom said, he's 91 years old. What good is he in prison? He should go out and talk to kids in high school about the dangers of fascism and Nazism. And so after my mom's testimony, he called my mom back to his quarters. He was so overcome with emotion that when he stood up, he passed out. They took him to the hospital. They thought he had a heart attack. The next day, she went back to the quarters, and as he stood up, my mom rushed to him just so he wouldn't stand up, and he gave my mom a kiss. That kiss was caught on somebody's iPhone and went viral, and a lot of survivors said, "How dare her kiss a Nazi?" Well, there was a little backstory there that she was afraid he would stand up again and faint. So that's another little short story about a misconception.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Good thing you explained that. My goodness. All right, this is for both of you. The book emphasizes the importance of second, third, and subsequent generations telling their ancestors' stories. Why is this so crucial?
Well, I think in short, Sylvia, as we know, unfortunately, Holocaust survivors are a casualty of their own mortality, and there are less and less survivors alive. And there are plenty of, 2Gs, 3Gs that really are very busy with their career and really don't want to get involved in this. And with October 7th, and as Graham mentioned, with the alarming skyrocketing anti-Semitism in our society, I think it's so important that other children of survivors, grandchildren, get out there and maybe not write a book, but at least tell their parents or grandparents' story. Because I think each story, Sylvia, is so important. Each story is so different, that I think it's so important. We have a friend, Sylvia, on the East Coast, Stacy Gallen, who has an organization, and the motto is "Remember the past to protect the future." And I think this is why it's so important that descendants of the Holocaust do this.
Let me give you a little bit of a different perspective here, Sylvia. And I mentioned this in my author's notes. I have two teenage daughters, 14 and 16. And you probably know this, but the statistics are frightening as to how little younger generations know about the Holocaust. And unless we keep these stories alive, it's that's going to continue to be problematic. And I think in this case for them, my both of my daughters, know about Eva, and I've known about her for a long time. Not only is this story, are you learning the history of, the Holocaust and the atrocities, but you have an inspirational tale as well. And it is, I don't have to tell you, I mean, it's a very hard time being a teenager right now in this country. 2 weeks ago, was sort of counseling with my daughters before they went to school because there have been multiple school shootings that week. And I actually have used the courage of the Corps, not just on one occasion with my children. So it's so important, again, to make sure that they're aware of the Holocaust, this younger generation. But in this case, everyone is always looking for an uplifting story. And we're biased, but you couldn't find a book that encapsulates both of those elements better than this one, and that's a tribute to the Corrs.
I totally agree. I totally agree. And ladies and gentlemen, when you read the book, you'll understand and you'll agree, I feel too. Okay, I don't know why, but yep. So sorry, just have to play around with my anyway. Can you describe, Alex, can you describe Ava's journey toward forgiveness?
Yeah, so after my aunt died, 1993, my mom's twin, my mom was searching for a path, searching for some way to make a difference. It's a little bit of a funny story. She gets a phone call from a Dr. John Mahalchik, who's a Boston College professor, and he says, Eva, um, I'm sorry to hear about Miriam, your twin, but I don't know if you're ready to start lecturing. But if you are, we have a medical ethics conference here in Boston. Maybe I don't know if you like to lecture to doctors. And my mom had a strange sense of humor, and she said, "Oh, I love lecturing to doctors. They think they know everything. I'd like to give those doctors 2 cents of what I know." And so then he said, "Okay, well that's great, but one other question. Maybe you could find one of those Nazi doctors to bring to the meeting." And my mom said, "Dr. Mahalchik, where do you think I'm going to find one of those guys? The last time I looked, they were not advertising in the phone book in the yellow pages." A joke. And so Dr. Mahalchik, well, Eva, that's funny. Maybe you'll think of something. So the last project that my mom and my aunt worked on, probably 1991 or 1992, was for a German PBS network called ZDF. When the final documentary came out, there was a Nazi doctor that my mom had not met, but he was in this documentary where my mom and my aunt were in as well. And his story is he's helped save 20 some Jewish doctors at Auschwitz. He was acquitted of war crime charges, went back to Germany to practice medicine. And so my mom thought, oh, well, maybe his name's Hans Mooch. Maybe Dr. Mooch will come to Boston. So we had contacts in Europe. They called up the family. The response was, Eva, he'll give you an interview, but he's not coming to Boston. You got to go to Germany. My mom was still in a situation where if she heard German, it would give her bad memories. So finally, a Dutch TV crew accompanied my mom, and she already had a new focus. She had just lost her sister a couple of months earlier, but she thought, well, maybe Dr. Mooch, who worked alongside Dr. Mengele, maybe he knew what was injected into the twins by Mengele, and maybe she could help the other twins avoid the same predicament, the same fate as my aunt. So they get to the house. My mom's very nervous. The last time she had encountered Nazi doctors, they were not so nice. Dr. Mooch, first question, what do you know about Dr. Mengele's experiments? And Dr. Mooch said, well, Eve, I don't know anything. He kept everything to himself, but I have nightmares. My mom said, whoa, you have nightmares? I thought we were the ones with the nightmares. Dr. Mooch, why do you have nightmares? Well, beyond saving the some 20 some Jewish doctors, periodically I had to send guard duty outside the gas chamber. And when the last body stopped moving, I would sign one death certificate. He went on to describe in great detail the operation of the camp, the operation of the gas chamber, the operation of the experiments in his living room. And my mom was a very quick thinker. This is 1993, Sylvia. And she said, Dr. Mooch, for all the people that say the Holocaust didn't occur, Dr. Mooch, would you come to Auschwitz with us in January of 1995 for the 50th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz to tell the world what you just told me? He said, sure, I'll be glad to. So my mom came back to Indiana. She tells me the story, and I was kind of my mom's sounding board. And I said, Mom, this is a bad idea. I don't think you should do this. No, you don't know what you're talking about. I have a Nazi doctor who's going to document history. Now I just need to figure out a way to thank him. How do you thank a Nazi doctor? I said, I don't know. She went to the local Hallmark card shop in Terre Haute, Indiana for 2.5 hours looking for an appropriate thank you card for a Nazi. Eva, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm just looking. My parents didn't drink alcohol much. She went to a liquor store. Nothing seemed appropriate. And then after many months, prior to January of 1995, she called me. She said, Alex, I figured it out. The highest honor I could give another human being, the best gift I can give another person, the best way I can thank Dr. Munch in my name only is to forgive him for being a Nazi. This is very appropriate. This is the best gift. And I again told her, I don't think this is a good idea. And she goes, I don't care what you think. I'm going to prepare a document. I'm worried that my spelling I might have some typos. So she took it to her local English professor in Terre Haute. And Dr. Kaufman have reviewed the document and said, Eva, there's no mistakes, but I think you're forgiving the wrong guy. No, I'm simply thanking Dr. Munch. This is a gift from me to him for him documenting history. It's so important. Well, you should think about it. So sure enough, on January 27th, 1995, Dr. Munch knew nothing about my mom's thank you. He documented history. He told my mom the same story. He told the world the same story he told my mom in his living room. There was a lot of world press there. There were other twins there. They were not happy. And then my mom surprised him by thanking him by forgiving Dr. Munch in her name only. And one of the reporters said, Oh, Eva, so you're forgiving Dr. Munch. How about Dr. Mengele? No, I'm giving Dr. Munch a gift. Months later, by the summer of 95, she realized that she no longer had this chip on her shoulder, that she should forgive her mom, her dad, forgive herself for hating her parents, forgive Mengele, and forgive all Nazis in her name only. And that last part, Sylvia, I get it's very subject to criticism, and it still is. And I asked my mom once, so you know you're opening up a whole can of worms with that statement. She said, I know, but I don't want another Nazi doctor, somebody who maybe worked alongside Mengele or Munch coming to me and said, well, you forgave Munch. I also worked with Munch. Why don't you forgive me? She wanted to move forward. And I truly believe that, this forgiveness and her response to how much happier she was really allowed her to live a much longer life.
Okay, I don't mean to cut you short, but we are ending the show in like 1 minute. So,
Sure.
where can we purchase A Blessing, Not a Burden? Very quickly, in 1 minute, anything lined up for the future? Anything in the works?
I'll
Anything
start
new?
off, Graham, and you finish.
1 minute.
Pediment.com, you can get the book. You can also go to Amazon.com. You can go to our website, myholocaustlegacy.com, and see all the talks that Graham and I have. I'll let you finish up, Graham.
1 minute, Graham.
Amazon and Pediment. We are going to Boston in 2.5 weeks. We've got multiple lectures there. All of the lectures are listed on, like Alex said, myholocaustlegacy.com. We're open to other avenues of engagement. As we discussed, it's important to continue getting the story out.
Thank you. Thank you both for coming on the show. If you want to hold up the book one more time. A Blessing, Not a Burden. Thank you very much. Thank you. Everyone, subscribe, like, listen to the interview. I think you'll like it. Buy the book. Thank you so much. Appreciate both coming on the show. Thank you. Goodbye, everyone. Book some more 1818 signing out. Bye-bye.